For those who have joined just now, Sarvesh sir is fixing some audio issues at his end and he'll be back soon.
Hello?
Yep, I think that is much better. We can hear you clearly now.
I can't hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, that's much better now.
Siddharth, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Now am I
great.
not audible?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think finally sorted.
Yep,
It's better now?
that's much better. Yes, that's
All right,
much better.
okay.
Let's head right back to the beach where you were.
So great. So we are at the beach, and people are walking on the beach, and they were leaving the footprints on the beach, and the waves would come over and then sweep them away. And then a friend just made a very casual remark, saying that uh, uh, after the waves have washed the footprints away, nobody even can tell that so many people walked on this beach with no footprints. And he said stories of our lives are also very similar. After we are gone, like several years after we are gone, what is it that we will leave behind through which we will remember that we were here, right? And that sort of, you're in the final year of your college, and you're very philosophical, and you're sort of worrying about what the real life has in store for you. And that sort of question sort of stayed with me, as if, like, what is it that you are creating? What footprint you are leaving on this kind of time that would be your legacy long after you're gone? And I think that question has been the this where the idea of doing something that would be my legacy started. But then I didn't really know what to do, like how to answer that question. And then I went on to do my job at Capital One in London, etc. But then I think gradually I realized that if you want to create a legacy, especially in a country like India, there are two, three things that you could perhaps do. Either you could be a scientist and you could make a really great invention. And by the end of IIT, I was very clear that I was not going to be the one. Or you could be a great politician or a leader and you can really bring reforms. And while I did contest elections in a hostel and I did win them, but I really realized that again, politics is not my cup of tea. And then sort of left the third choice that maybe build an enterprise that could sort of solve a real problem and make an impact in people's life. And that's where I thought maybe I should start something of my own. And but what? Like, you don't know like what to start. there's so many ideas that come to your head, and how to decide what idea sort of you should work on. And every now and then I would have some idea that I think I was very convinced about. But I think a very good litmus test of an idea, whether it really has possessed you and is really yours to work on, is you sleep on it for like a week or so. Like, don't do anything about it. Just keep thinking about it. And even if you feel excited about it after a week also, then maybe it's something that really wants to be worked upon by you. And internship sort of happened to be that idea. Because one of my friends from IIT again was looking for an internship back in 2010, and he had, after IIT Madras, he had gone to do his master's from London School of Business, and he was looking for internship in India. He couldn't find one, and I was sort of disturbed that somebody with that kind of pedigree can't find an internship. Then it must be really difficult for anybody else, right? And that sort of, again, the problem statement stayed with me for long enough for me to say, let me do something about it, and let me start some effort in this direction. And I started Internshala as a blog. So along with my day job, I said I won't leave my job right away. I really don't know how long I feel passionate about this and what's where it is headed. But at least let me take the first step. So along with my full-time job, I set up a blog called Internshala, where I said I'll talk about internships and internship culture in India and how we can sort of make it better. Because clearly there's a problem. Students don't know what careers they're getting into, and they're very clueless, and they don't have exposure, and they don't have the real skills. And corporate keeps saying that our graduates are not employable and they're not professional and whatnot. And I thought internship would be a good quick way, like a test drive for career, like dating, right? You could sort of try different careers and figure out what is that your heart really wants. So I really want to do something in the internship space, but I really don't know how big this will become and what it will become. So I started as a blog along with my full-time job. So that's how Internshala was born in 2010.
So from the very beginning, I think there's two things that you mentioned in your sort of introductory ideas that I relate to. First of all, I've spent most of my life in Rajasthan, so I relate to the business family and the shop and all that you talked about. Secondly, back in 2015, I was maybe third year, final year of my engineering. That's when I first found my first internship was on Internshala.
Okay.
Nobody in my college knew about Internshala at that time, since I think the penetration in South was not that much at that time. I spoke about Internshala to a couple of my friends, and they found internships on Internshala. One of them ended up becoming the student partner of Internshala eventually. So yeah, we go back a lot. So interesting, right? So you talked about sleeping over an idea for a week. So essentially, my question here is, what is that validation that comes, and where does it come from when one realizes, okay, this is the time when I should quit my full-time job and I should do this is my passion, I should pursue this full-time.
Correct. So that's, I think, there are two things that I think I'll talk about the validation when I got the confidence that it's big enough. And I think at times there is also merit in being naive. For example, had I known as much about entrepreneurship, market sizing, TAM, and pricing and valuation, all of that, as I know today, I would not have started Internshala. Because I would have said it's a very niche market, it's a small market, one-time market, how would someone come back, etc. But what happened was I started, which is why I started small, right? I said I don't know how big this will become. I'll do it part time with my day job. I started Internshala as a part time hobby or project in January 2011, right? And I kept working on it, and every day I was learning something new. I was very excited about what I was doing, and you could see more people reaching out to you and more companies reaching out to you. But then the defining moment came when somebody at IIT Madras alumni office noticed Internshala blog, and he said it's beautiful and what you're doing is wonderful, and why don't we talk about it to our alumni community and let them know about it. So until then, the problem of Internshala is it's a two-sided platform, candidates and companies, right? So there's classical chicken egg problem. Do you get companies first, or do you can get candidates first? And I solved that by just simply aggregating whatever internships are available on the internet at one place on my blog, right? But still, I didn't have any organic listings on the platform. Like the internships are only available on Internshala blog, right? They said, why don't you give us a write-up about Internshala, the alumni cell of IIT Madras, and we'll send it to our alumni of IIT Madras. And I said, okay. I didn't think much about it. But back then I didn't know that alumni cell, like when alumni body of IIT Madras, like 18,000 people had graduated from IIT Madras. By then they're who's who, right? So someone they were running businesses, they are CXOs, and they are deans and directors and professors and whatnot, right? So the one evening this email went out from alumni cell to the alumni of IIT Madras, saying that one of our ex student is doing this blog. I think it's very fascinating. It's a very novel thing. It's a very unique thing. Something like this doesn't exist in India. So why don't you sort of do whatever you want to do with it? And next morning I woke up, I had about 800 emails in my inbox, right? And many of them were congratulating a beautiful idea, and it's like you're putting effort. And many of them wanted internship for their children, etc., which is fairly common. Any parent looking for internship with the kids will want to use all the different means. But most importantly, I think out of those 800, about 100 were emails from startups from IIT Madras alumni who wanted interns for their business. And they said, why don't you talk about Internshala on your blog and help us get some interns? We can't find any website where we can post internship and get interns, so maybe you can do that. And that's when I realized that startups really need interns, because until then, like corporate, and they all had their set programs and they would go to these campuses, etc. But it was not really as mainstream as it is today, right? And I think that's where I realized that maybe as the startup culture in India grows, the internship culture will also grow on back of it, and maybe I should pursue it full time. So I think that email that went out and the feedback that I got from the alumni community was really one thing that made me think seriously about pursuing it as a full time thing. And then very close to this date, there are two other things that happened. One is I got an email from a student from Chennai. It's a second year. I remember her name was Janvi, second year Bachelor of Arts student in a degree college in Chennai. And she said, I found my first internship through Internshala, and I got my first paycheck today. And it's about 3,000 rupees. And like, this is my first income, and I have tears in my eyes. I can't tell you how grateful I am. I just really feel so much more confident that I have certain real skills that world is willing to pay me for. And I was never in my life. I had been like 5 years. I was a business analyst in BFSI companies. I never had somebody tell me that my work made an impact on their life. It changed their life, or whatever delta weight did, right? And that was beautiful. I think I felt you feel very you felt like Superman. Like you did something and it changed somebody's life in whatever small way it did. And I thought, wow. So on one hand, companies are saying that they want interns. On the other hand, it really helps interns find self-belief, confidence, and the skills that they need to succeed in life. So that happened. And then very, very close to that, Hindu brought out a story on Internshala. Again, because Hindu has this education supplement, and they talk about various initiatives in education segment, and they thought Internshala was interesting, and they ran a half-page feature on Internshala. Right? So I thought that was all the validation I sort of got and needed to say that, wow, this is exciting. I mean, if this happens for the rest of my life, I think I can live that life. And I thought I should do it full time, and sort of I put down my papers and served my notice period, and I was into Internshala from October 2011 full time.
Great. So you talked about, I sense the instincts of making that impact when you talked about the beach story about leaving a legacy. Now you talk about the email that you received. You seem to be very curious and keen on leaving that impact. So the follow-up question to that would be, when you're somebody who believes so passionately about that impact factor, how do you convince your close friends and family who are in and around you, and how do you convince them to be on board with this decision and think about it the same way that you do?
Passion is contagious, no? Passion is contagious, right? I'm telling this story, you're excited, I'm sure.
Correct.
Right? Somebody here in the 240 audience that we have, somebody's thinking, that was exciting. I would want my life to be like that, not just sitting in front of a computer and typing numbers in Excel, right? So I think one is passion is contagious. I think how convinced somebody else becomes is a directly function of how convinced you are about something. Very true. And I think second thing, I think again, a very relevant question that I want to touch upon is this whole parents and family thing, right? A lot of people say that my parents don't support us and all of that. I think that's really not true. I feel that parents are your best support functions, and they always want best for you. They always, and even today, like what after internship has become what it has become, my mother's question has not changed. She would still ask me, "Beta kha liya kya? So time se so raha hai kya? Health theek hai na?" So they don't really expect a lot from your life. So my parents were I come from a business family anyway, right? So they know the risk of running business, and they know the joy of running business. They know the perils of all of it. So they were sort of prepared. In fact, it must have, my father must have been laughing inside, saying that, you were saying, weren't you the one who said you would never do a business? And look, the blood sort of speaks for itself. So I think they were very much on board. They obviously had question ki, "Dekho beta, you have a very good stable job and very exciting career." And I had a great career. 5 years that I've worked, you can be earning so much, and you're already earning so much. So what happens to all of that? I said, look, I already have good education. I have good experience, and if it doesn't work, I'll come back to work. And so I think they were very on board. Friends, again, I said, I think they're as excited about it as you are. So if they see that you are very excited about the idea, and they think of you as capable. A lot of times, कि ऐसा नहीं होता कि friends are again a great feedback system. We want to become a great singer, but मेरी आवाज ही फटी हुई है. तो तुम्हारे friends में बोलेंगे भैया तू रहने दे, ऐसे नहीं हो पाएगा ना, तू मोहम्मद रफी मत बन. So I think my friends were sort of again knew me from hostel days and back in school. I was a bright student, and I must have thought it through. So I also had a lot of support. I mean, I wouldn't ever think that. I think I got the best support I could.
Great. So let's talk about the core group that you had around you while you were starting the company. How many people, two, three, and then how did you think about who are the right people to hire? Did you hire senior folks straight away, or did you take some time to go about hiring?
Oh, I took all the time in the world to build Internshala. In fact, again, I said it's a very atypical startup story. It's not as if we had a business plan, we had year one goal, year two goal, year three goal, etc. Nothing like that. I was just doing it because I was just having so much fun. Right. First day I installed Google Analytics on my blog, and I could see that somebody from Coimbatore, somebody from Odisha, somebody from Kashmir, somebody from Punjab is coming to my blog and reading it. I couldn't sleep for the night. Like, wow. So for 2 years, Internshala was actually after I quit my job. For 2 years, Internshala was running like a blog, and I wanted to convert it into a platform that you see today, but I just didn't have the technical knowledge. I didn't know programming. I didn't know anything about building a website, but I had installed this blog, and I knew how to work around with the blogs. I was doing that, and thankfully for Internshala, we got to live the business that we built. So we hired interns. Internshala hired interns from Internshala that built Internshala, right? So we say very often we say Internshala is
Very organic.
of the interns, for the interns, by the interns, and they were very passionate about Internshala because Internshala was helping them sort of get the first paycheck and give validation to their lives. So they all were very excited. And again, I think a lot of times experience is overrated, right? Just because they didn't know what they didn't know, they could do what they did, right? Because they didn't have any baggages. So for 2 years, Internshala was entirely running based on a team of interns that I would hire regularly from the platform, working all virtually. So 2011 to 2013 is when Internshala is still a blog, and I'm the only full-time employee. And we had a lot of interns, 20, 25, 30, and we are doing all the things: business development, sales, marketing, a bit of tech inside the blog. All of that is happening in fact, we conducted two large-scale national events also, entirely run by uh, interns. So all of that is happening. So, in between, I got married also, and and I was not drawing any salaries from, by the way, from the internship that period. My wife was supporting me in the first couple of years. I was living off her income, and after a year and a half, she said, "देखो भाई, अब decide करो कि you want to kind of continue this as a personal project and hobby project and be at home all the time. That's fine, but at least let me know that's your plan. Or if you want to build a venture out of it, then you have to sort of do something more than this. So you have to get out of the house, maybe take a small office, hire team members, and all of that." तो मैंने कहा हाँ यार अब I think I'd want to do later, and then I sort of started building the core team. One of the interns who had joined us remotely, and then he sort of joined us in office, Shadab Alam, again as an intern, became the very first employee, and he's with us even today. So when 10 years after I started, so our very first in-office intern is with us until today, and he heads our entire e-learning platform, Internshala Trainings, the skilling engine of Internshala, and then for technology, etc., because it was a weak spot for us, right? Again, I reached out to my savior, Elma Meter, IIT Madras. I sent out an email saying that I'm taking Internshala a lot more seriously, and I want to build it as a platform. Does somebody want to join me? And Vikram Shah responded. He was 2012 IIT Madras graduate, and he had done a tech startup while he was in college. So he kind of related to the idea, and he said, "I want to join." And I think when these two folks joined, Shadab and Vikram, that's when I felt, now this can be built like a business and a venture. At least build a team around it, have a sort of at least 1 month plan, quarter plan, yearly plan, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so Shadab and Vikram joined us in 2013, and that's when the team building started.
Great. So I remember you mentioned that once you sent that email to your alumni association, you had a lot of inbound interest from students as well as companies. So apart from that first initial 100 odd companies that came through the alumni cell, did you otherwise have to work very hard to get companies on board to advertise their internship over those 2 years, that is?
So, I want to say yes, but not really, because a lot of good things. In turn, back then I very strongly used to believe that when you do want to do something really nice, the entire universe conspires to make it happen for you, and that really happened for Internshala, honestly speaking. Because the startups are very close knit community. That means if a one founder is always speaking to the three other founders in a week at least, and so a lot of once we got the initial seed traction, that sort of kept bringing us more and more new employers and new companies on the platform, mostly startups. And the second thing I realized, the startups are the sort of main customers of Internshala. So I could again reach out to all the e-cells or incubation centers or VCs and just tell them about Internshala. It's a free service, right? And so I think just a lot of inbound kept. In fact, till date, even until last month after we raised capital, we have spent zero money on corporate acquisition. 180,000 companies use Internshala every year to hire interns. And we have spent 0 rupees till date in 10 years on acquiring on the corporate side acquisition. It's all been word of mouth. It's a great product, it's a great service. And I think the karma, it pays you back. So everybody who benefit from Internshala sort of told their friends about it and they came on the platform. Many of the students who benefit from Internshala as interns later on became entrepreneurs or HRs in other companies, and they came back on the platform and started hiring. So I think it became a virtuous circle in that sense.
It's a, I mean, I find it very uncommon, but that's a lot of organic growth that we have
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
So one part is about building your own passion and trying to slowly realize, taking time and slowly realize that now is the time when I want uh, to make it into a business. But how do you realize, or when do you realize that okay, now I want to start thinking about funding? So
Hmm.
growth,
Hmm.
scaling, and
Hmm.
funding is when you think about scaling exponentially, right? When you go
Correct.
and pitch to investors.
Yeah.
So do you have an idea in mind that my startup is at a stage where I need to scale? And then when you went for started looking for funding, did you have that solid plan of, let's say, 2 years, 5 years? If you can speak about that.
Yeah. So first, I think we realized we need some capital in 2015 because by then internship platform was obviously growing, and it was one of the in 5 years, I think 3 years, it became the world's largest internship platform. So today, in terms of the number of candidates who apply on Internshala, number of companies who hire Internshala, there's no other platform as big as Internshala, and an internship platform as big as Internshala anywhere in the world, right? But it was free platform, both for students and as for companies, and we were monetizing primarily through ads. And by 2015, we had realized that ads is a limit. You can't scale beyond a point. You can maybe generate a crore or 2 crore of revenue in ads on the website or blog, wherever you are running the ads, banner ads, email ads, all of that. But it's not really going to scale beyond that. And the other problem we were tackling at the same time was a lot of students were applying for internship on Internshala were not getting those internships because they didn't have the skills that were needed for those internship. Right. So we wanted to build a skilling platform, online training platform, where we can train them on the skills that were being seen in demand on the internship platform. So we wanted to build an e-learning platform, and we really didn't know how. Like content and the operations and the what courses to build and how to market those courses, etc. So 2015 is when we first felt that if you have some capital with us, it would be easier for us to build that the second leg of Internshala, which is the trainings platform, the skilling platform, and which is when I reached out for funding. And but again, while we did have a 2-year, 5-year plan, but no plan. There's a saying in military that no war plan survives the first contact with the enemy, right? Similarly, no business plan survives the first contact with the market. So you can build a plan, but when you launch it, it obviously uh, um, tweaks and reiterates, etc. But 2015 is the first time when we realized we need some capital, and we went and got that capital in 2015. But we have been very again, coming from business family and my family, we've been very frugal, like one of our culture values, if you come to Internshala and visit the office, is very proudly we claim to be jugadu and kanjus. Be jugadu and kanjus is our culture value, you know. And when we say kanjus, we don't mean miser, we mean frugal. So I've been very careful about not burning money for the sake of it, right? growth should be sustainable growth, not you're just acquiring money. So when we got that money in 2015, just like everybody else, we started spending on Facebook and Google ads. Right? The first thing that you do as an entrepreneur when you raise capital is you start spending on marketing. And we've spent about 2.5-3 crores on acquiring students. And 6 months later, when we sort of looked at that cohort's performance on Internshala in terms of intern application engagement versus organic, we realized that it was massively different. Right, the paid growth was very uh, underperforming in terms of engagement and monetization later on, etc. than organic. And we said then we should perhaps do things which perhaps take longer, but build this organic funnel even larger. Right, so we started then we stopped that paid marketing activity and we started investing more on events, content, and the number of opportunities that you have on the platform, the product, etc. And I think that sort of really helped us bring the next phase of growth for Internshala, both for the learning platform that we're building as well as the core platform, the internship platform, without it burning a lot of hole in our pocket for next 3-4 years. So the capital that we raised could last for another 4 years and 5 years, and the platform kept growing, both the internship platform as well as the learning platform that we had built.
Great. So, since we've talked about a lot of good things about your journey, I want you to talk about, in hindsight, what were the top 3 challenges that you faced? While it could be while during the initial setup phase or even till date. So, as a company, Internshala, what are the top 3 challenges that you face while running it?
I think let me to talk about both challenges and learning, right? So I think one is the technology. Like building technology team is really hard. And for 2 years, we were a blog, not by choice but by chance, because we couldn't find the right technology person to build it for. The freelancers we tried or the agencies that we tried, none of that worked. I think if you are starting out and your business has a strong technology element, I think it would help to figure it out early on, then just saying, let me start with something and get figured out along the way. I think one is having the right technology team or the co-founder with you early on. If you're not a technical founder like I was not, and I think that's definitely one challenge. And I think it continues to be a challenge even today. So while we obviously are a technology-led company, a product-led company, but I think hiring technology talent is still very hard in India. That's, I think, one challenge that I would think we faced and we continue to face. And every startup that I speak to faces, and you would also face if you start. The second learning that I think we learned in last 2 years, specifically, once you sort of, again, there's a phrase which says, if you're not a communist when you're in your 20s, you don't have a heart. And if you're not a capitalist by the time you're 40, you don't have a brain, right? So, so the first 7-8 years of internship was like that communist phase. We are doing something great for the world, and we are doing something amazing. And we'll figure out monetization later. Let's just focus on doing exciting things, build a great culture, build all in-house organically, right? And last 2-3 years again, it has been about, okay, now there are a lot of people who have been with the internship for very long. Now let's create financial outcomes for them and growth, the revenue, and let's build a business as big as the brand is, has been the focus. So I think, again, it's a choice. You want to live your life the way you want to live, right? And I don't want to change that at any point in time. But I think having that clarity of what you are building at what point in time and why is something super important. And one thing that I would want to sort of go back and change in the internship journey is to get a lot of at least more senior folks in the team early on. So internship since was built off the interns, by the interns, and for the interns. So everybody at Internshala for at least 17, 18 joined as an intern and grew up the ranks. So we are 250 people today, and out of those 250, about 180 would have joined us as an intern and have become team leaders, etc. And why it is great from a culture point of view and building a sort of sense of mission in the entire organization. I think it did wonders for our culture. I do think getting external supervision or that wisdom could enable you to move faster. For example, let's say you want to build a sales function inside your organization. Somebody would call this corporate and say, would you want to pay for a premium plan on Internshala, right? There are two ways you can go about it. Either you can say, look, I'll again do it all organically, brick by brick, in the way I've been doing everything else. And that will take you a year and a half to set up the function. Or you could say, I'll hire somebody who's already been a sales leader in a different organization, get him on board or her on board and let them build this function for me. So I think that sort of saves you a lot of time and a lot of experiments somebody already done and learned from. You wouldn't have to repeat the same mistakes again. So I think building senior folks inside your organization, like hiring for competencies that you don't have, is very, very crucial for an entrepreneur, both from growth and speed point of view. So I think that's something that I would definitely want to advise everybody, having built Internship over the last 10 years in both the modes. I think it's a massive difference once you have experts building it with you.
Wonderful. While we are on the learning point of view, right, I would also want you to elaborate on, let's say, when you have a very novel idea like Internshala, like you mentioned, 2011, nobody in India is thinking about let's aggregate internships, right? So when you have a very novel idea like that, you can be a victim of competition, wherein people set up competition and they do the same thing that you are doing. I'm sure you would also have had to face where multiple other companies came up with the same idea. Then they must have gone ahead and done a breadth first approach where you took a deep dive into we'll stick to internship. So is there anything that specifically you have learned via competition in about how to deal with competition or how to stick to your own initial business idea?
Yeah, I think it's a very tricky and I think it's a brilliant question because it's a very fine balance that you have to sort of strike. And on one hand, uh, uh, look, if you are thinking about the competition all the time, then who's thinking about the customer? Right. So I think that's something that we learned early on. I remember there was another business in internship space in 2015 and that I used to obsess about. Because suddenly they overtook us on social media and I sort of became paranoid. And I used to track their every move and etc. And after a month or so of being absolutely miserable, because once you sort of start following somebody else, then you're not really thinking about it on your own, and दिल ही नहीं लगता काम के अंदर. Somebody sort of told me that यार अगर तुम लोगों के बारे में सोचोगे, है ना, तो तुम्हारे बारे में कौन सोच रहा है ना? And then he said, look, people think it's about out thinking competition, building a great business, but he said building great business is out thinking your customer. Give your customer what he doesn't even know that he needs, but he needs, and just of you sort of delight him all the time. So they focus on customer all the time, right? And I think that's sort of super important. And we used to, like, somebody will say Naukri will come and eat away your business, LinkedIn will come and eat away your business, Indeed will come and eat away your business, or Coursera will come and eat away your business, etc. All of them have come, they have built their business, we are also there, and we've been growing happily over the last 10 years. So I think one is don't obsess too much about the competition. Always keep customers at the heart of what you're doing. At the same time, also don't become complacent. यार नहीं मैं तो नहीं वो तो कुछ कर रहे हो. They're also smart people, right? So what are you going to learn from them? So I think there's a very beautiful balance of learning from somebody without being jealous, and that's important. So you look at you look at a competitor in a very, very objective fashion. Not कि यार वो ऐसा कैसे कर रहे हैं, मैं तो क्यों नहीं कर रहा ऐसे. Don't let all those negative sentiments come to you. Simply look at it like a scientist, है ना? क्या somebody is doing this. What is it that I can learn and implement in my business which will help me grow and serve my customers better? I think these two things are important. So look at a competition. Don't obsess about it. Always keep your customers first and innovate for your customer. But at the same time, don't ignore your competition because they're also smart people. तुम ही नहीं हो 30 मार्क, हाँ और भी लोग आए हैं तो उनसे सीखो. बट सीखने के लिए वो माइंडसेट चाहिए कि यू आर नॉट फीलिंग ओवरवेल्म्ड बाय दैट. इट्स वेरी हार्ड. But I think once you sort of master that art, you can very objectively look at somebody's business and say, what is it I can learn and implement on my business? I think these two things are important when you think of competition.
Now, while we are almost at the end of the hour, I would want to move away from talking specifically about Internshala and the business specific this company and try to, as I had mentioned earlier, pick the brain of Sarvesh sir, the entrepreneur. So do you think there is like a set template or at least a few desirable qualities that anybody who's budding to be an entrepreneur, or at least like you mentioned earlier, right? तुमसे तो नहीं हो पाएगा. So is there something that you need to have at least so that people can say कि अच्छा इससे ये कर लेगा, ये तो चाहिए?
Yeah, I've been proven wrong so many times in life. One of the good things about entrepreneurship is कि इतनी बार आईना दिखाती है ना तुम्हें, तुम ये realize होता है कि I mean, I learned that absolutely, I'm nobody to give this advice. In the sense, who I'm to say that this is the right way or this is a template for entrepreneurship? There's no template to life. So how can they be a template to entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship mirrors life very closely. You know? So can you say, do you have a template of who can become or who will not become successful in life? No.
Definitely not.
Best of us may give our best of efforts, but may not succeed. And some of us, by luck or by sheer being right there in the right time, may succeed, etc. So I think, first of all, what I'm going to say, please note that this is not definitely a universal template. There are enough examples outside these templates that exist and are bigger and better entrepreneurs than I could ever be. But nonetheless, what I firmly believe in, I think there are two, three things that I think really important, or at least for example, currently we're hiring for entrepreneur in residence role. And if anybody in the audience, by the way, is looking to get a chance to work at a startup in the closest possible entrepreneurship role, entrepreneur in residence role is that. So if any of you are interested in actually doing in startup without having to do a startup, please apply to entrepreneurship in residence, entrepreneur in residence role at Internshala. You'll find the link about it in our careers page. But how the qualities that I look for, one is the execution. Look, Internshala, at the end of the day, is job board, right? Naukri is job board, LinkedIn is job board. There's so many job boards out there. I think we succeeded while so many others did not. Even LinkedIn takes internship feeds from Internshala today. So half of the internships that you see on LinkedIn are actually from Internshala, and they'll redirect you to Internshala, right? Naukri had a business called First Naukri, which they had around the same time that Internshala was born. But you've not even heard of First Naukri, or maybe it's 100 times more than Internshala. I mean, in India, in a market like India, you can simply win based on execution alone, right? If you execute well, you can win. So I think I really look for a strong track record of execution. And this could be in your life also. Like, was there an exam that you sort of set your goal on and you cracked the exam? So आपने कितनी मेहनत करी? Because execution is actually at the end of the day is hard work, right? Can you slog for 12 hours, 18 hours a day and not give up in between? I think that's really, really important parameter. Second thing I think which I'm not perfect at, but I think great entrepreneurs that I've met are good at is structured thinking and strategy, right? So a lot of people, execution doesn't mean just doing 15 things, random, incoherent things at the same time and feeling busy, right? There's a method to the madness, right? So I think having that clarity and having that structured approach to execution is also very important. So if I am speaking to somebody and I ask them about the project they worked on or the life story in general, if I find that they are simply trying to do too many things at the same time and not really having a method to that madness, I think I would give that person a pass, because I know that eventually it will catch up with you and you would not be able to execute all of it as well. So do fewer things but do them really well, but have that clarity in your mind. I think that's important. So clarity of thought and execution are the two qualities that I look for as a skill set, core skill set for an entrepreneur. In terms of personality traits, right? I want somebody who's humble. I want somebody who's ethical. I think those are non-negotiable for me, because you really don't want to spend time doubting somebody's intentions or motivation. That sort of should be a hygiene factor. But I think clarity of thought and execution capabilities are really right at the top for me for an entrepreneur.
Wonderful. So, sir, before I let you go, if you could help us with any, having been in the edtech space for about 10 years now, could you help us with one trend that you feel in the edtech space is like a really good trend which will catch on in the future, and one that you think is not really up to the mark at this point?
Ooh. Again, I said I'm not really a trends guy, and had I been trends guy, I would not have built Internship. But I think one thing that I do want to tell people about edtech, they lot of talk about technology. Look, let me phrase it in a better way. Amazon recently shut down its online academy, which was they had launched Amazon Online Academy to help students prepare for competition exam. And the point I want to make there is, when it comes to tech, they can't be anything bigger and better than Amazon, right?
Correct.
EdTech, unfortunately, is very little about tech, very, very little. It's all about education. So with all the talks of entrepreneurship, the AI, machine learning, and adaptability, and all of that, the teacher and the content is still very much at the heart of education, right? No matter how fancy technology you have, how great an algorithm you have, and all of that, But if your education is the delivery is not up to the mark, so I think it won't succeed. Others, Amazon would have succeeded because they were the best in tech, right? So over the centuries old principle of guru being the supreme uh, for education, right? I think that has not gone away. In our schools, we remember the teachers who were the best teachers and who really made us learn the subject. That will sort of trend will continue. One trend that I hope goes away and is going away, thankfully, the funding winter, is this whole acquiring customers for just by spending, like you spend 3 rupees to earn 1 rupee. The inorganic growth. I think that trend is definitely, a lot of people have realized that it's not sustainable. And in EdTech, anyway, it's only one-time purchase most of the times, right? You're only learning one course or one thing at a time, so it's not a repeat customer that you get. So you have to find a way to acquire customers very organically. For internship, for example, the internship platform is our organic funnel, which is everybody comes, and then we monetize on the courses or skilling platform that we have. So I think so education, the teacher will always remain at the heart of education. Content will always remain at the heart of education, and this whole anyhow get the customer and sell them EMIs. I think that trend will go. So quality businesses should survive and should thrive.
Great, great. So, sir, that's about all the time that we have today. It's been wonderful to have you starting off our E-CONCLAVE this year at Shailesh Mehta School of Management, IIT Bombay. It was great to hear from you, your insights, and I'm sure the students would have had a wonderful time listening to those and taking inspiration.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sidharth. I really enjoyed remembering the entire journey and sharing the insights with you. I hope it was useful for some of you. And again, some of you are looking to take an entrepreneurship plunge. If you are looking for a role, do check out the EIR role on Internshala. I think it's a very exciting role.
Definitely, definitely, sir. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Okay. Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye.
Bye bye. Over to you, Sidharth.
Thank you, Sarvesh sir. Thank you, Sidharth sir. It was definitely a very insightful session, and all the I hope the audience has a much better understanding of what it is like to be an entrepreneur. And thank you for taking your time. Thank you a lot.
Bye.